this is the buttonhole mend. It's essentially the buttonhole stitch used to mend a hole. You see I had a hole in the back of this fabric here, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So this is a piece of cotton fabric and a hoop. You don't have to use an embroidery hoop. I just find it's helpful to hold. So let's make a hole because we're mending a hole here. So I'm just gonna cut a little one out. There we go. So there is my hole we are going to mend. I'm going to use a heat erasable pen to just draw a shape around this hole, and that way it'll give me a guide for where I'll be mending today. So I'm just gonna draw about like 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch, kind of all the way around my shape here. It doesn't have to be perfect. We just want a general guide. Next, I have my needle threaded, and there is no knot at the end. So to start on our buttonhole mend, we want to actually come in from the front, about a couple inches away from our outline here. And we're just going to leave our tail hanging here. I find for the first couple stitches it's helpful to hold it with my thumb. But we'll come up along that line. And then we're going to leave about 1/4 of an inch space along that line. And then we will pop our needle up inside our shape about 1/4 of an inch as well, and wrap that thread underneath our needle, pulling on through like so. We don't want to tug too tightly because we don't want this to come out, and we always want to tug towards the center of our shape so we create our loop here. Then we move on along our circle, find that outer edge about 1/4 of an inch away, pop through, making sure our thread is underneath our needle, and pull that on through. We will just work our way around our shape here. And if you find it's hard to slide your needle in and out, we can go down all the way through and come back up like so as well. Either way it works. But we want to try to keep our row, this length of stitches pretty even. And we just want to go all the way around our shape, making sure we have these anchoring buttonhole stitches. And the reason we start further away from our hole is so that way we are starting in nice solid fabric that isn't kind of like worn or damaged, because if you stitch into damaged fabric, you aren't going to have a very structural mend. So if it was kind of like loose and not very tightly woven fabric around my hole here, I would have made this a little bigger. We'll just keep going around here. Like so. All right, so we have our last stitch here, and now we need to start our second row. So how we do that is we slide our needle underneath the loop of that first stitch in the row, and then over our working thread again. And we don't want to tug too tightly because we want to create a little bit of a loop right here. We'll move on to the next one here. Gently tug and see that loop starting to form. And again, we'll go all the way around our shape here. And depending upon how tightly woven you want this shape, you could do every other loop. You don't have to do every loop if you don't want to. If you want it like more loosely woven, you could space them out. But I'm just gently going underneath the top loop of my buttonhole here, and then over my working thread. We're not going through the fabric at this point. We're just working on the front of the fabric here. And as you can see, I'm just rotating my piece as I go around to make it easier to find the angle at which I want to slide my needle underneath. Go. And once I finish this row, I would start my next one. So find the loop of that row I just started and go under my working thread again. And again, you could skip every other if you want. Just depends on how tightly you want your mend here. Sometimes finding that loop is a little hard. Go. As you can see, I'm getting really short on my thread here, but I think I can finish it. If not, you could end and start again. All right, so I've gone all the way around a few more times, and I'm right at the center here. Now I need to kind of attach all of this together, so I'm just going to go underneath and then go across to the corresponding loop here, give that a little tug, just so they come together, and then I'll find a loop on the opposite side, do the other side there, so everything is really tightly closed up, and then just bring my thread onto the back. So just going down through an opening there. Now we are going to knot our thread. So we're not going to make a traditional knot. We want to just run our needle underneath a few stitches in one direction, and then go back in another direction here. And I usually try to do this like 2 or 3 times. If your thread gets super short like this, you could also use the eye of the needle to go back the other way. So that way you can get your needle on through. All right, so we've done our one end there. We're going to trim off this thread. And now this thread we have on the front, we need to knot that as well. So we will pull that to the back, rethread our needle here. I used all 6 strands. I really got to smush this together. There we go. Oh, I missed one. Want to make sure we get them all. There we go. All right, and now we'll do the same thing with this thread here. So slide it underneath a few strands on the back, pull that through, and just skip over one, go back a few the other way. We want to make sure not to sew in our tail, and skip another and go back a few more. There we go. And this avoids knots on the back so we don't have weird lumps, but we have tucked our thread nicely underneath. Oops. And then we will cut this away like so. And this is our buttonhole stitch mend.